justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Here.
Ms. Grignani is going to be absent today. She had a death in the family, so she will not be joining us. Ms. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. DePiero? I did ask. Sorry, I'm a little
Here.
off today.
Again. Still here.
I apologize. Also in attendance are Mayor Michael
on a second.
Soriano. Oh, I did not call you.
You called Mr. DePiero.
Okay, so to be very honest, the reason I'm off is I forgot the recording equipment was off, so that's what threw me off. Council President Carriffy?
Here.
Okay. Also in attendance are Mayor Michael Soriano, Business Administrator Keith Kasmark, CFO Ann Cucci, Township Attorney Jim Lott, and Township Clerk Colette Madden. Council President, we have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, October 15th, 7 p.m., regular meeting. November 12th, 7 p.m., agenda meeting. Approval of minutes, agenda meeting July 2nd, regular meeting July 16th, agenda meeting August 5th, regular meeting September 17th. Presentations, reports. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. This coming Sunday at 1 o'clock on Minnehaha and Beverwyck Road will be our second annual Italian Culture and Food Festival. So please come on out and join us. It was a lot of fun last year. Our staff has worked very hard and is working very hard to make sure it's even better this year. We're going to grow this event organically over the next couple of years and just see where it takes us. It won't become the San Gennaro Festival overnight, but it'll become something that's ours here in Parsippany. Second, that our recent street festival, our fall festival, was a resounding success. I'd like to thank everyone involved with making that happen, the staff at Parks, Forestry, and Recreation, the Parsippany-Troy Hills Police Department, our first responders, including rescue and recovery, and the ambulance squads, professional and volunteer as well. I want to thank them so much for everything they did, including the CERT team being available, as well as all of the people that came out to make it a resounding success. The weather was perfect, maybe a couple of degrees higher, but you'll have to talk to someone else with more power than anyone here in this room will have, all right? But thank you so much for being a part of that. Next thing I have is that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I'd like to tip the hat to Mayor James Barbario for making sure that this is something that was always recognized within the township. And that's something that Mayor Barbario and I always saw eye to eye on when it came to that. And I'd like to read this into the record. This proclamation: whereas October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is an annual campaign to increase awareness of this disease. And while we have seen an increase in mammography rates and a decline in deaths, there is more we can do. And whereas the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month remains dedicated to increasing public knowledge about the importance of early detection of breast cancer diagnosis and treatment. And whereas too many women do not utilize mammography at regular intervals, even though research indicates it is best available method of detection to decrease death rates. And whereas the awareness campaign is sending out several key messages. Most notably, the American Cancer Society continues to advise women to get an annual mammogram screening once they reach age 40. And whereas the National Cancer Institute estimates in the United States that more than 268,000 women and 2,670 men new cases of breast cancer will be diagnosed this year, and over 41,760 people will die. And whereas in Morris County, female breast cancer accounts for 15.8% of all cancers and 9% of all cancer deaths. Now, therefore, I, Michael Soriano, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, do hereby proclaim the month, October, as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I ask our citizens to be aware of the importance of early detection, our best protection at the risks of breast cancer. Last, for my report, I'm sure some of you have heard about some plans and designs that have been, put together about the Booton Reservoir. And tonight, I'd like to have a public presentation for you by the Open Space Institute, who has spearheaded this project from the beginning. There will not be a question and answer session after the presentation. However, you may ask questions during the public comment when it comes to the Boonton Reservoir. Okay? So please come on up, introduce yourselves, and please address the public. Yes, you do.
please.
Everything needs to be on the record, so it needs to be in the microphone.
I tend to walk around. Is that okay?
You can walk around, that's no problem.
Good evening, everyone. And we are here to hear from you. So if after the presentation you do have comments, please feel free to come and make comments. My name is Frank Pinto. With me is Ben Spinelli and Genevieve Torino. We are with a company called Greener by Design, who was hired by the Open Space Institute to prepare what's called a property management plan. So what we're going to do is walk you through what the plan is and give you a little taste of what we see as the project once it goes into development and actually becomes open to the public. As I'm sure residents of Parsippany know, this is the property has not been you haven't been permitted on the property for a very long period of time. So now we're going to have very limited public access, but what we feel will be just a tremendous project and an incredible asset to both Parsippany and the town of Boonton. So we'll walk you through this is an overview of what we'll be talking about this evening. And I'll try to be as respectful to the council's time as possible. There's just a tremendous history with the Boonton Reservoir, as many of you probably know. The old town of Boonton is under the water. First, let's get this out of the way. There is not a church steeple that shows up when the water level gets low. There's always been that myth. There are still some foundations and some old stone rows from the farms that were under there. Most of the property before it was acquired by Jersey City was owned by Morris County and was the county poor farm. So before there was an adoption and a foster system, if you were an abandoned child, you were basically sent to the poor farm, and you worked you were a ward of the state, and you earned your food by working on the farm. There were other privately run farms under the Jersey City Reservoir, and we've seen a lot of really neat pictures of the history. Right here, what you see is some of the dam under construction. Another thing that we learned along the way with this project was the dam is called a cyclopean dam, which basically means that it's constructed in a dry laid stone fashion, very similar to the pyramids in Egypt. So it is somehow it's waterproof. I guess they did a lot of things to do that, but it's a phenomenally laid and constructed structure. So it's quite the impressive structure, and one that also needs to be protected to ensure Jersey City's water supply is safe. What you see here is an historic photo from the 1930s of a bridge that crossed the spillway. This is if you were on Greenbank Road and we're looking at the spillway dam in that area, there was a bridge there. Part of this project is restoring a pedestrian bridge across that spillway. It's kind of a key component to enabling an entire loop trail around the reservoir. And what we're talking about will be about a 7.7 mile loop trail for pedestrian access only. So some of the features that will be on the trail, it'll primarily be a natural surface. Some of you, if you trespassed on the property along the eastern shore, will know that there is an existing gravel road. That will be improved somewhat with additional gravel, but that will be the only surface that will be improved around the entire trail, around the entire reservoir property. So, go ahead, advance. It's envisioned that the project would be developed in 4 phases. The 4 phases you can see in the different colors, phase 1 being green, extending from Greenbank Drive and the dam structure southward all the way along and at the foot or at the base of the dike along Route 46 and terminating along the entrance road to 287. All of it is going to be on the Jersey City property inside that fence line. That phase is the most mileage. It's also the simplest to construct. and would probably require the least permitting from DEP to get it underway. The next phase would be in Powder Blue, which would be in the town of Boonton as well as in Parsippany-Troy Hills along the Parsippany Boulevard Reservoir Tavern area. You can see in the 3 Ps on the screen, 2 of them along Greenbank Road and 1 along Parsippany Boulevard. The primary, the thought being that these are locations that are easily publicly accessible. They are on Jersey City property. They're not in a close location to any dense residential neighborhoods, which might cause some overflow parking issues, and they're not near any schools. The one along the western shore on Parsippany Boulevard, Route 202, is almost across the street from the Reservoir Tavern. If you drive along there, you may see a very cleared, grassed field area. It's about a half-acre area that was set aside when the county built the new Washington Street bridge crossing of the Rockaway River. That was a staging area for all the construction equipment. The Park Commission at that time, probably 15 years ago now, the Morris County Park Commission realized that that would be a good area for a parking area if we ever got public access to the reservoir property. So I just point that out as that's how long this project has been thought. It's been, I think, 5 mayors is the way that the Park Commission describes it, 5 Jersey City mayors to try and negotiate and get this public access done. We're 2 months away from making it happen. So keep your fingers crossed, and we hope we can bring it to conclusion at the end of this year. The 3 parking areas, as I mentioned, 2 are along Greenbank Road and the other along Parsippany Boulevard. The 2 along Greenbank Road, we initially located that 1 parking area on the west side of Greenbank Road. New Jersey Dam Safety, which is within DEP, said there's no damn way you're going to put it there for security reasons, and their thought was it's just too close to the dam infrastructure. So we are locating it east of Greenbank Road, which is a safer location from a homeland security perspective. Now, what we envision as the parking areas, it's trying to be designed, since this is a primary drinking source for about 500,000 Jersey City residents, is to use as little impervious coverage as possible, and to also capture any stormwater that is generated by the gravel parking lots. The centers are being designed with what are called bioswales, so that would catch a lot of the first flush runoff from any environmental contaminants during a storm. If you've ever been to Duke Farms down in Hillsborough and you're in that parking lot, it'll look and have a lot of the same character as that facility. These 2 are along Greenbank Road or Greenbank Drive, depending on which online map service you're using. These 2 are roughly going to hold about 20 cars each. The only real asphalt will be for the handicap accessible parking areas. The map on the left is the southern portion. Both of these are before the big 90-degree turn on Greenbank Road. The southern one is located right next to an existing driveway that serves the Jersey City infrastructure for all of their water treatment facilities. And the one on the right is right on the edge of the Jersey City property and immediately next to the RVRSA treatment buildings. Both are located exactly across the street from what will be a trailhead. The trailheads will have a removable bollard. That basically means the public will be allowed to get in on foot, but if there's an emergency, the bollard can be removed and a police vehicle can access. I'll get to some of the security features that we'll have in just a minute. There is, like I said, a lot of tremendous history with the property. Our property management plan is online. If you go to the Jersey City Environmental Commission website, you can download a copy or view it online, and you can read a lot of the great history that Genevieve put together that speaks to everything going back to the Native Americans that lived around the reservoir property. The part of the sales pitch, if you will, to Jersey City is what is in this for our residents? Why is Jersey City even allowing this? Nearly every reservoir in New Jersey does have some form of public access. Almost every reservoir has quite a bit more public access than what we're proposing. All that said, we still want to offer Jersey City some incentives for saying yes. So part of that is making some water quality and environmental improvements on their land, as well as to help the stormwater that enters their property. So part of what will be in the plan and what the Morris County Park Commission will carry out with their lease from Jersey City is doing some of these deer management measures and water quality improvements to really make some measurable, we hope measurable improvement to the quality of the water in the reservoir. There's 8 billion gallons, is it? 8 billion gallons of water in that reservoir, and it's a 155-mile watershed. The improvements that we can do on site will likely have a de minimis impact on water quality, but something is better than nothing. So there's a committed effort to making some improvements to the water quality going into the reservoir. Okay. And these are some of the methods that will be used to help do that. The Great Swamp Watershed Association has kind of expanded its reach and will be doing water quality testing on the reservoir property to see, in particular, if we can improve the water quality coming off of 287. During our research of this project, we looked at a lot of Google Maps and did a lot of other mapping and actually found some piping that goes right from the highway under the water into the reservoir. And it's, there's nothing we can do to treat that before it gets there, but there are a number of stream channels that are highly eroded along the west shore that we can do some measures. We can slow down the water volume as well as velocity and then trap all of those sediments before it gets into the water body. So there will be some marked improvements. Part of the plan also will be some wayfinding and some storytelling to really tell the public about what we're doing here and benefits that we're making to the reservoir. These are very difficult to interpret, but these are some of the designs of what will occur along the western shore in particular, but also along the eastern shore. Go ahead. I did mention already that we're developing a partnership with the Great Swamp Watershed Association. There is existing water testing that's being done by Suez, who is the operator of the reservoir for the city. But what we're looking in particular for additional water testing to really see if we can make some improvements to water quality for the Jersey City residents. With this public access comes all of these opportunities for educational programs and for volunteer efforts and for scouting groups to get out there. So I think once people start to see this property, see the beauty of it, the ideas are going to start to flow. The one that immediately comes to my mind is 10K running clubs that are going to be out there Saturday mornings. 10K is roughly about 8 miles. So
6.4, but who's
6,
counting?
6.4.
Nobody's counting when you 10K.
Good. I knew it was more than 5K.
It's actually 6.2.
Okay.
Is it 6.2? No, 5K is 3.2. Sorry.
You can tell I'm not a
5K is
runner.
3.1.
But
Running the wrong distance this whole time.
but you'll have running clubs that are going to want to do their morning loop, 8-mile run around the reservoir. It's going to be beautiful and it's going to be rewarding. Pretty much flat, but there are going to be some hills involved with, if you just know the contour of that property. But one of the things also that we discovered, Jersey City built an entire building, a lab for water testing. And as soon as they built it, they decided to basically outsource the management of the reservoir, and it's been sitting vacant for years. So there's a huge opportunity for the Jersey City school system to do on-site science days, all kinds of different environmental initiatives and local educational programs can be worked into that as well. So we really feel like once we get that gate open and the public are out there, all kinds of other benefits are going to come out of this project. So it's it's an exciting time that we're at with this project. These are some schematics of what we see or envision as features along the way. The western shore and the eastern shore have just incredible views. So there are several spots that the Open Space Institute sees as real opportunities for philanthropy and sponsorship of stone benches and a blind to watch the blue heron on the island. Puncheons will be needed to cross some of the wetlands, but every effort will be made to minimize any kind of disturbance to the land and the ecosystem as possible. And this is a cross-section of what one of the boardwalk sections would look like. For the most part, this is what will happen. It'll basically be just a clearing of brush, if there is brush. Virtually no trees will be removed in order to create the trail in its natural state. Along the Booton side of the property, RVRSA already has a sewer line running through it, and it has basically a cleared road along the north shore. So the trail is there. It's just really a matter of allowing the public as opposed to trespassers to use it. Emergency response is where we started with this project. We knew we couldn't do any type of design work or come up with any kind of proposals until we checked with anyone and everyone involved with security. So Chief Miller has been fantastic, and Jay Wiener's the OEM coordinator you have, really helped us develop the emergency response plan for the property. So that their work is directly incorporated into the plan. And basically, keep in mind the Morris County Park Commission has its own park police force. They will have jurisdiction, as well as Parsippany and Booton Police on response, all depending on where a call is made. So we've been working with the local police on that. The other security issues that we really need to address is all of the infrastructure. So the basic plan for that, and I'll show some mapping in just a second, is to fence off the public from anywhere that is considered a critical piece of infrastructure. There's in no way do we want to enhance or provide an opportunity for anybody to do any harm at the dam structure and the dike structure. Either one of those are critical pieces for the water supply in Jersey City. So we've met with a lot of agencies to make sure that we aren't proposing anything that will be of offense. And we did end up hosting a meeting with all of the people in the room at the same time, which I couldn't believe we actually got that scheduled in a matter of a couple of weeks. But everybody wanted to make sure they were at the table and got their say. And it was, everything we were proposing is meeting with their criteria. So we were very happy about that. As I pointed out, really the points of access, there's only going to be 4 public points of access. The 2 off of Greenbank Road, the 1 off of the parking area on Parsippany Boulevard, and the last one will be on the north side of the bridge along Washington Street. At what now is a cul-de-sac that was created when the new bridge was constructed. That will be an access in Booton. Those are the 4 public access points. There are numerous gates all around the property where the local police will have access. Where I understand now, they do not have any access to the property, and trespassers know that. So part of the project is the more eyes that you have on the property, the cleaner and the more reporting you will have as a result. And that's not my opinion. That really comes from public safety officials. They're the ones that, the more eyes you have on it, the safer it will be and the cleaner it will be. And the Morris County Park Commission, I think it's 300 miles of trails that they maintain. They see it. That's exactly their experience whenever they have public access along a trail. So these are some of the views from the property. I hope you get out. You're able to get out there soon and enjoy them the way we've been doing on our site visits. And it will be a dawn to dusk operation. It'll be in keeping with all the other county parks. No night activities. Virtually no. I don't think there's any plan for lighting at all in any of the parking areas, even, because it will be a dawn to dusk. It'll be operated just like any other of the county parks. This is the view you would get, maybe not quite as close, of the spillway structure. If you've ever been there, it's just a tremendous experience to be in front of this wall of water. It's quite spectacular. These are some photos of the spillway crossing, and the photo on the right is an existing bridge abutment. We don't know if it's engineeringly sound for a new pedestrian bridge. We're talking about probably a 120-foot long bridge to cross that spillway. We still need to go to DEP and dam safety and everybody else for approvals. So it'll be designed to their specifications. One of the other things I didn't mention about security is if there is ever a Homeland Security risk level rise, the facility would just be closed. And that decision will be made by Suez, Jersey City, and the Park Commission. The Park Commission will basically say, Jersey City doesn't want it open, then it'll be closed for the day. So that's just better safe than sorry is going to be the attitude.
Will the Park Commission be able to tell Jersey City we're closing it down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that yes.
Works both ways.
Correct. If there's some need that the Park Commission has to close it, yeah.
Or what about if Chief Miller, Parsippany deems they want it closed for a particular reason?
He would talk to Chief Gabe at the Park Commission, and then they would say, I don't think the Park Commission is going to go against the desire of the municipality.
I just wanted him to have the authority to be able to do that as well.
Yeah. If there's some risk, a safety issue, absolutely. Yeah. The two maps that you see, the one on the left is of the main reservoir structure on Greenbank Road. In red is what will be the new fencing that will be constructed to keep the general public away from all of the critical infrastructure around the dam. You can see the Ps for the two parking areas. And in powder blue are basically access points or gates. There needs to be some gates for the functioning of the reservoir by Suez and Jersey City. So that's why you see those at the ends of the dike and the dam. On the right, you'll see a red square. Please know that's not the scale. That is a security shed. Part of the security measures will be 2 or 3 security sheds where basically response ATVs will be kept. So anyone that would need to be excavated on a stretcher, that all of that equipment will be stored on site. So the response time will be very quick. Access would be right off of a gate, an existing gate on Route 46. I think I mentioned, if you just go back to the map for a second, on Route 46, we're not permitted to be on the top of the dike wall with the public. It's a fantastic walk if you get to do it. Route 46, if you're on Route 46, you don't see anything. That office building across the street, they have a tremendous view. But the general public, so one of the suggestions was a viewing tower along Route 46 so that you could see it. So we'll see if that's possible and work it out. I kind of like the idea of the viewing tower in that then people along Route 46 are going to say, wow, how do I get there? And then they'll discover the trail, and they'll discover the Reservoir Tavern and downtown Boonton, and this can turn into an economic development effort to draw people into the Parsippany-Boonton area. Did I finish? Wait, hold on. Yes, one of the things I didn't mention along the West Shore, a critical design feature that we needed to address was the eagle's nest that's on the property. There is a nest that is along the southwestern portion, and we've already talked to DEP and their wildlife folks. We can run the trail near the nest. We have to route the trail as far from the nest as possible, and we're able to do that and still not impede the eagle in any capacity. So there is enough of a buffer to do that, and in particular, there's enough pine tree buffer that really creates a visual for the eagles to not see the public. The biggest offenders to eagles, we've learned, are photographers. They are the ones that disturb eagles more than anything else. Vehicles don't bother. Eagles are not bothered by vehicles. All that 287 traffic doesn't bother them at all. It's people being outside of a vehicle that disturbs them. So we just have to be careful and monitor that situation, particularly during their breeding months. Okay, I think I finished. As to a timeline, I do have some paper handouts that give the timeline. We're on schedule as far as what we have planned. November of this year will be before the Jersey City Council. Tomorrow night we go before the Jersey City Environmental Commission, hoping to get their seal of approval to recommend the project to the Jersey City Council. And Jersey City Council will address it in November and December. And then we're off to the next phase, which is engineering, design, and permitting. So that'll be all of 2020, and the hope being that phase 1 construction can start late 2020, early 2021. It really depends on how quickly we can get through DEP. And that is it for now, and I'll sit down and we'll stay around for questions that may come up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Council President, that concludes my report.
Thank you. At this time, Township Council, we're going to have a presentation by Bob Iricane and the Board of Adjustment.
Good evening, everyone. You hear this? I'm used to being on that side. Council President Karifi, thank you for giving, I brought Bernie Berkowitz, who is one of our council members, with us. We're going to give a brief overview of what we do, because it seems back in January there were some comments made about our rate of approval. And we want to just go over some of the items and why we do what we do, and tell you a little bit about our experiences. So,
You can take that mic off of there if you want. That makes it easier for you.
no, that's okay. First of all, as I said, Bernie's going to help me with this presentation. I want to give you a little background on Bernie for you guys that don't know him that well. Bernie's been a member of the Zoning Board and Planning Board dating back to the 1980s. Bernie's a retired attorney and former municipal judge. He also served as a planning board attorney in the 80s. Bernie will discuss some of the things we face as board members. Bernie?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Jack, I'm going to read what I wanted to say, so I make sure I cover everything. But as you all know, the Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial entity with the power by statute to interpret the zoning laws of our municipality. Also, we're a body of voluntary citizens trying to accommodate our fellow citizens who live in town. Majority of our cases involve someone wanting to improve their property for the benefit of their neighborhood, in addition to improving their own lifestyle and property. Minor hardships can be easily and properly averted by coming before the Board of Adjustment. Most of the cases we hear are for very minor things that are required, almost as simple as an air conditioner having to be placed on a piece of property. It is our job to help our fellow Parsippany residents and make their living in our town less difficult. What we do by interpreting the zoning ordinances is to approve a variance when appropriate, to modify the applicant's requests to be more in line with our town zoning ordinances and overall appeal, and to deny the request when it is detrimental to the property, the neighborhood, and our town. Through our professional staff and hired experts, the board is well guided, as are the applicants. Many cases are not even filed or withdrawn after being reviewed before we even get to hear them. And still many more are modified during the hearing process. With the input of our board members, our experts, and our township officials, many citizens agree with what we have to say and amend their application. The final result then benefits not only the applicant, but the applicant's neighbors and the township. We're a board made up of members with very diverse backgrounds that allows us to say yes when appropriate and no when appropriate. If any of you have any questions about how we perform our tasks, I know Bob and I'd be happy to answer them. I'd also invite any of you to come to our meetings to see how we operate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernie. By aside, Bernie and I have been friends since 1974 and been involved in many organizations and things. We go way back. I'm going to address the report in a little bit. Comments made by Councilwoman Peterson and Council Vice President McCarthy back in January this year indicated that the Zoning Board of Adjustment was the board of yes. How untrue this is. We take pride in our review of residential and commercial applications. We do our best to make decisions based on the facts of cases. Objectors are given ample time to ask questions and express their opinions. And as Bernie said, and all of this testimony is under oath. We're a quasi-judicial entity. That means when an objector comes up, he or she gets sworn in, states his name and address for the record, and then has an opportunity to express his opinions or questions or comments on the application. We use our contracted experts to help us with the technical requirements of the application. Why do we have such a high approval rate? It's inherent in the fact that many of our residential properties do not have conforming lot sizes due to the way the town was developed many years before zoning laws were introduced. Two-family houses are not permitted in Parsippany. I found out today there are 58 two-family houses in Parsippany, some of which we are granted what's known as interpretation that these two-family houses pre-existed the zoning laws in this town. And I'll never forget the time we had an attorney from Lake Hiawatha by the name of Erwin Cannengeiser, and if he was still alive, he'd probably be 105 today. He came and personally testified to the evidence that this property had been a two-family house back in the 40s. So those are the kind of things. We don't willy-nilly grant two-family houses. People come and want to put a two-family house in. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. I'm sorry. Are you, there is an approved list of, like I said, 58 houses. I just found that out later on. Lot sizes including 40 by 100, 50 by 100, and 60 by 100 zones create a number of variance applications. Lot coverages, setbacks, impervious coverage. Many of these applications are de minimis in nature. Generally, these are residents that are outgrowing their homes and want to stay in Parsippany. We have dealt with central air conditioning units within side yard setbacks that were found to be in the original construction documents when the house was built. And no complaint was made, no question was made by the building department or the zoning department. People come to replace their air conditioner and they do the right thing. They come and get a permit. Come get a permit. They're told their unit is in a setback and need a variance. Can you deny that? The air conditioner's been there for 25 years. So we have residents who have removed underground fuel oil tanks and request a variance to put the new one above ground within the side yard setback. Again, they're taking a leaking tank out of the ground. There's no place for them to logically put it to service the furnace. It has to go in the side yard setback. We'll ask them if they talk to their next door neighbor, and the next door neighbor have a problem with that. 99 out of 100 times there's no problem. We grant the variance. Recently, we dealt with a variance request for a family that has special needs son. They wanted to provide for their son and a caretaker within the current residence, creating what would appear to be a two-family house. But they make there's certain restrictions. The unit is not blocked off, and they agree that there's a deed restriction that this is not a two-family house. Again, the family wants to keep their son with them as opposed to putting them into a residential unit someplace else, and the child was, or the son was very disruptive. And having him live in the main part of the house, he would get up in the middle of the night, wake up everybody. We granted the variance. It was a large house, and it made a lot of sense. We've had a number of applications for family needs, elderly parents, special need children, and adults. You know, people that want to bring their parents to live with them, and they need a variance to make that work. As long as it's reasonable, we can't turn them down. I don't see how we can turn them. On the non-residential side, we deal with a number of use variance applications that encroach on residential area of Parsippany. We deal with these applications with sincere concerns about the impact on the residents of Parsippany. Recent applications for houses of worship have been scrutinized to make sure they fit in with the surrounding neighborhood. A recent application took over 5 years before it was approved because of extensive objections from the neighborhood. And we listened to the neighbors, and the applicant listened to the neighbors and made it more conforming. Okay, this is my personal note. I know the timing of this report and the fact that it was introduced prior to my report was specifically aimed at me. For information, I met personally with Mayor Soriano a couple of weeks prior to this report being made public. He never said a word to me that there was a problem and that this would be brought up at the time of my reappointment. Neither of the two councilwomen or the mayor made any attempt to discuss any of these issues with myself or any other board member prior to the report going public. I try to run a good board, and I had a problem a few years ago, well, many years ago. The township planner was tasked with giving all of our use variances a hard time. At the time, I had a board attorney by the name of Stephen Hansberry. You might remember him as Morris County Judge Hansberry. I asked him if we could change planners. And I met John Chadwick, who knows more about zoning and planning and master plans in this town than any other person in this room, and probably any other person in New Jersey, because he wrote a lot of the master plans many years ago. He sits next to me and gives me great guidance. If there's an issue, I lean over to him and say, John, what's the story on this property? And he'll give you, almost chapter and verse of what happened. I checked with Mike DePiero, and at the time, the late Jimmy Vigilante, and asked them if I could change planners, and they concurred. And I brought John in, and John has been with me for, I don't know how many years, at least 15 years, and a very, very important part of the zoning board. In the course of my meeting with Mayor Soriano, I told him about John Chadwick and that they were in the midst of a revision of the master plan. I said, talk to John. John knows this town. Never happened. People ask me why I still do this. There is no compensation, lots of aggravation. I'll go home at night after a Wednesday night of being here for 2.5 hours. My wife will have to put up with my anxiety, okay? And she keeps saying to me, why don't you quit? Why don't you quit? When I first joined the board in 1990, we had 3 meetings a month, except for August and November. They went from 7:30 to 11, and I'll never forget the night I was here at 1:45, and I'll tell you how long ago it was. My beeper went off. Anybody have a beeper? Everybody knows what a beeper is, right? Okay. It was my wife. She wanted to know where I was. She thought I had died on Route 46 coming home. So it'd be interesting, and I want to introduce another person. My zoning board secretary for 25 years. Were we together? How many years? She told me she would retire the day I quit, like being it. She retired. She mentioned to me before, it'd be interesting to see what our approval rating is for the last 30 years. And I'm willing to bet, what do you think, Harriet?
What's that?
What do you think the approval rating would be for the last 30
What
years?
do I think of
The
what?
approval rating for the last 30 years.
The approval rating?
Oh.
Well, if you want to deny somebody a side yard setback because they don't have enough room to widen their driveway, and it should be denied, then you're doing them a disservice. Most of the applications that we get are minor variances, an addition to a house, a generator in a rear yard or a front yard, an air conditioning unit. These are the type of applications that we get. These are small applications, and when you look, why don't you check back years before and see how many were approved by past presidents?
Thank you, Harriet.
We had 2 other chairmen before him. We had a wonderful man by the name of, what was it, Colonel? Dave Stivers.
Dave
Who
Stivers.
worked for Nabisco. He was chairman for many years. Barry Morrell, an attorney, was chairman for many years.
Hey, Mr. Irekin,
All right.
we have to stop that, and we have.
Yeah, we got it.
Their records.
No,
I've
get
said
it,
enough.
go ahead.
Okay,
I
okay,
think
she's
this
good.
whole thing is
She's
so
good.
silly.
All I wanted to do was tell her.
These minor applications.
So, why do I stay? It's in my blood, okay? I don't want to see something unfinished. And every year I look at this board and I know there's stuff. Right now, we're in the middle of a very contentious application for 7-Eleven. It's not going to finish this year the way it's going. They just carried the case and we don't even think it'll be on before January. And every time I have one of these cases that I want to see to the final stage, you know? So, I'm 72 years old. God willing, I got 3 more years. That's probably it. That's probably it. But I've served during the administration of 7 mayors. Till now, I have never had any problems. I have been involved in community service and volunteering since 1974. 48-year-old resident. I owned an accounting practice on North Beverwick Road for 34 years. I was one of the ones that instigated the Fall Festival. Joe Weisberg, myself, Mimi Letts, and Barbara Ivoli. We formed that back in whatever year it was, and it was a tremendous success. Why was I so interested? I was interested in the businesses of North Beverwick Road. I wanted to see people come, and the first year, I heard we had the biggest one on Sunday.
No, this was last year.
No, the first year. First year, you couldn't walk on North Beverwick Road. The intersection of Lakeshore Drive and Beverwick Road was, am I going too long?
Yeah, well, I just want to,
Okay. Well, what do we turn down? That's my final thing. What do we turn down? Tell me. What applications that we've talked about do we turn down?
I just have a quick question for either one of you. If you had said that there are a lot of applications come in, and that you have discussions with them and
I don't have
no, I mean, as far as suggestions into changing, making
Certainly.
adjustments, and then a lot of the times the people do make those
Yes,
adjustments,
that's
and then they,
correct.
right.
Yes.
At the hearings.
At the hearings.
Right, so, would you say there's a pretty large percentage of that occurs with these, with the, or would you say there's a number of them that wouldn't be approved
50
unless the people made adjustments during the hearing?
15% maybe. A person wants a 6-foot fence, and we knock them down to 5. Person wants a 4-foot setback, or a 2-foot setback on a shed, we make it 4 foot. They want, the biggest concession, and I'll name it, is the Hare Krishna Temple over on, across the street from PAL. Their original plans were twice as big as what we approved, twice as big. So that's it.
Okay. Does any,
Well, I have one question for Mayor Soriano, okay? And I'm not being a wise guy. You have a cop here tonight for safety, right?
Usually is.
Okay. When I had a cop at the Board of Adjustment meeting for the first 7-Eleven case, you asked me why I had a cop there. Thank you very
do any
much.
That was
council members have
incorrect.
any
If I may answer that, the question was, the cop is patrolling the building. You had the cop patrolling inside the room, which I felt was
He
inappropriate
was out
use
in
of
the
our
hallway.
police force.
He was out in the hallway.
Okay, no,
was out in the hallway.
not when he was there.
Well,
And by
he
the
may
way,
have- he may- I don't-
by the way, I did enjoy your presentation. I
Okay.
really appreciate that you came here, and thank you. I'm glad you were able to keep your temper under control for this presenation, unlike last time.
Do any-
But I appreciate
last,
it.
Last
All right.
time it was
Hold on.
very emotional because I got.
Do any council members have any questions? No? Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I just have one question, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
So the report that you just gave, are these reports the board's annual statutory report to governing body? Do you have any specific recommendations that governing body needs to take up?
Many
The
years
mic.
we've given them. Unfortunately, many of the years.
Mr. Irekin, I'm sorry.
We've given reports we have given reports many years, formal reports. They have not been done every year because we found that nothing was being done. And But I'm in speaking to the planning board planner, we have now begin to instigate some of these changes. I think the air conditioner one has been enacted. So you can go back through it. I'm sure if you talk, well, Nora's not here. I'm sure you can get copies of our old reports from Nora.
Right, so we did make an effort to clean up some of the recommendations from both Planning and Zoning Board this year. We have another tranche that we're getting ready to do. I would encourage the board to continue to meet its statutory obligation, not only to report the number and types of variances, but also give the governing body a feel as to what amendments to the
done.
zoning ordinance. Well, that's true, that's true. But in addition, what substantive amendments would the board like to see with respect to, example, some of the issues you identified with respect to the residential C variances that seem to be reoccurring?
You're not going to be able to legislate Lake Hiawatha. You have to look at every application individually because every application is unique. The air conditioners, the fences, and things like that, the oil tanks, those have been addressed. Mount Tabor.
Right, well, Mount Tabor's
I mean,
another
you know,
issue,
it's-
that's right.
We have a big Mount Tabor application coming this week.
Right.
It's, they have houses that the steps are in the right of way. If their two wooden
Right.
steps fall down, they have to come for variance to put new steps up.
Right, but to the extent that the board sees commonality
Yeah.
in the nature of variances, and we think that there's a way perhaps to craft an amendment to the zoning code to relieve the homeowner in most cases of the burden of having to appear at the board, we should take a look at those.
I agree. I fully agree. I fully agree.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Township Attorney, Mr. Lott?
At the last meeting, we had a question about the proposed ordinance with respect to pet shop sales. So the earlier ordinance that had been circulated and had discussed with council had taken a pretty simplified approach, which would prohibit the sale of cats and dogs in any commercial pet shop. It exempted animal care and rescue organizations, shelters and pounds, etc. Subsequent to that discussion, there was another version of the ordinance that was submitted that has a much different regulatory approach, and that would allow the sale of cats and dogs subject to about 9 different conditions, perhaps 10 different conditions. So I did speak to Council Member DiPiero. He suggested that I circulate the ordinance that we had discussed last week to Animal Control, and I'll go ahead and do that.
Thank you.
So.
Okay, Business Administrator, Mr. Kazmark?
Thank you, Council President. Just want to introduce, where'd she go? Oh, there you are. You switched seats on me. Susan Favate has a very brief presentation for the council tonight. Susan?
I was told 2 minutes, and I'll try to hold to that. I know we have a full agenda. I just wanted to give a very quick status update on some of the various planning initiatives, and it's kind of timely that Mr. Irakane was here because we actually did have a meeting, and Councilman DePiero was at that meeting as well last month, or August, I guess it was. Very productive meeting with several members of the planning board talking about some common issues and better communication between the two boards. So that was a good meeting. But that was part of the master plan update, new master plan, and just a sense of where we are on that. The planning board has an internal draft of the plan. We presented it to them last week, and they're reviewing it. We asked for a couple weeks for comments, and we're going to be refining it and making some changes. Targeting a public hearing date for November 18th. And I think the plan is that we would come to this council at some point, either prior to that hearing or shortly thereafter, give you a briefing. We think that it's helpful for you as a board to have that, that extra briefing. But that's where we are. If we hold to the November 18th meeting, which there's every indication that we will, I think the planning board will be on position to adopt on December 2nd, I believe, which is their next meeting after the hearing. So good progress on that front. I know there's been some questions about Highlands and the conformance petition. We have been working with the Highlands Council. They required a scope of work. And so we prepared that for them, worked with Keith on that a little bit, and sent that along to Highlands Council. They approved the scope, and they actually gave a $10,000 grant for the effort. So we are underway with that, and we thought that was great news. No additional cost to the township. It's being funded by the Highlands Council, and our office is working on that effort as well. So I think it'll be done in the next 2-3 months at most. So that's where we stand on that. And as Jim just mentioned, we have been working with his office and with staff downstairs on a couple packages of zoning changes. There were several issues that had been raised by staff that were things that they were seeing, things that needed to be addressed, dealing with handicap ramps in the front yard, making sure that homeowners can do that. How to treat Airbnbs. That's something that is coming up, and we need to address that. Residential temporary dumpsters and storage units and driveways, things like that. So we've been working with Jim's office on that language, and I think that's going to be coming up later in November as well. So stay tuned to that. And then lastly, we have been working a little bit with Mayor Soriano on looking at hotels and motels in town and how they were permitted or not permitted, how they came to be, trying to get a sense of the overall hotel stock and recognizing that some of it is not where I think we'd all like it to be, and what can be done on that from a zoning perspective. So we've been working with staff, again, downstairs to try to uncover how these things came to be, and in many cases it's been decades that they've been in existence, so they predate zoning sometimes. So we're looking at some options, and we're going to wrap that into the master plan as well. So the master plan will have some clear recommendations on hotels. So that's it, plus all of the things that we deal with just week by week at the planning board, which remains pretty busy. So, any questions?
Any
That
questions
was
for Susan?
Three-
Thank you.
That was 3
Thank
minutes,
you.
maybe?
There you go.
Thank you.
Just two other items, Council President. First, yesterday and today, our township engineer, Justin Liz, and I sat through 12 hours of community rating system training provided by FEMA. We are trying to reinstitute the community rating system, which is essentially a point system with regard to flood mitigation efforts taken throughout the township that earn the township a series of points. As you earn additional points, it has an effect on any residents who carry flood insurance. It reduces their premiums. So within the next few months, we will be back to council to talk about the future of that program here in Parsippany. And lastly, today's my 1-year anniversary here in Parsippany.
Oh, congratulations.
I survived. And I just want to thank members of council and the administration, all of our department heads and employees and the residents for your warm welcome here in Parsippany most days.
Didn't you have a full head of hair when you got here? I know the feeling.
And I appreciate it and look forward to continuing to work together. Thank you.
Township Clerk, Mr. Madden.
No report at this time, Council President. Thank you.
Township offices, committees, reports. Anything?
No, nothing.
Okay, engineering report. Edgewood Court reconstruction project. Construction is substantially complete. The contractor is working with the sewer department on unforeseen issues with the sanitary sewer lateral repairs. Final paving will take place once the sanitary work has been completed. No action, no council action required. 2019 road resurfacing curb and sidewalk program. All curb and sidewalk work is complete. Road milling and paving will continue until October. No council action required. Draining issues. Engineering and the Public Works Department are actively investigating numerous drainage issues. Groundwater is still high and is seeping through the asphalt roadway on Haddonfield Drive and Fernwood Place. We are installing under-drain systems on these roads to collect the water and reduce icing problems in the winter. Other drainage issues are being investigated around Ashwood Place, Fox Hill Road, and the Lake Intervale area. No council action required. Community Rating System CRS program. We are currently working with the consultant at the NJDEP on getting back into the CRS program. This will provide discounts on flood insurance policies based on the level of activities in which the township participates. No council action required. Endorsement of the NJDOT Local Freight Impact Fund Grant application. We are in the process of preparing and submitting a grant application through the NJDOT Local Freight Impact Fund. The fund is a competitive grant for transportation projects that addresses impacts of freight travel in local communities. Eligible applications must have a minimum of 10% large truck volume and access a warehouse distribution center. Our application is for the improvements to Jefferson Road from Parsippany Road to Smith Road and includes drainage enhancements, roadway base course strengthening, minor widening at Parsippany Road, and surface course paving. The resolution endorsing the applications will need to be adopted by the Township Council. Bids taken September 18th, Lake Hiawatha Water Main Replacement, Phase 1.